But that's the thing, is that when people see someone that's successful, they try to jump on that person's strategy, or like, oh, they're saying it this way, let me do it that way.
Hey, welcome to the Growworth Podcast with Joe Mutuku. My name is Joe Mutuku, and welcome to this podcast. Our aim here is to promote conversations that influence founders and leaders into understanding their own value and growing it through enterprise. I hope you join us. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and also ring the bell so that you get notified when we upload a new video. All right. So now let's get on to the video. Okay, hey everybody. I am so excited to be having the conversation that I'm having today with Viv. Her full name is Vivienne Marughu. It's very interesting of the story of how I met uh, Viv. So I was on Instagram, which is something that I never do. So I went to I think it was the Explore page. And then her content really just stood out. It stood out to me. Um, and then I went through it on Instagram, and I read it, and I was pretty blown away, right? So, and I did another thing that I never do, which is I reached out to her and I was like, "Wow, hey, I just want you to know that I stumbled upon your content and I think it's pretty good." Yeah, and then all of a sudden I started to become a follower of Viv and her content, and I grew a lot. She's probably one of the two people that I have ever done a guest post with. That's just to show you how impactful her content
That is true.
was to me. Right? So and I have seen her really grow and evolve into her and um come into her own, and that's why it was a no-brainer for me to reach out to her to have a conversation on content, because if hers was able to stand out to me, then she's doing something right. So I'm going to introduce her. So Vivienne is a storytelling strategy and content manager that specializes in messaging, content strategy, and content creation slash communication through the power of storytelling. She started a business in 2019 as a passion project before becoming a brand and storytelling strategist. She was a travel blogger telling stories about her experiences, planning trips, and sharing tips on how travelers can curate their own experiences. And then in 2020, before the pandemic hit, she pivoted into the content marketing with the same gift of storytelling because she saw a gap. Everyone is educating, but everyone sounded the same. That is true. She quickly realized that people gravitated towards her for one thing: the stories she told. Whether it was a moment of vulnerability, a service she was selling, or a live case study she was walking through, the stories she told helped her build trust and connect with her audience, and ultimately convert many of them into trusted customers. Yeah, so basically, if that didn't tell you that Viv is really good at what she does, then I don't know what else you're looking for. But anyway, welcome to the show, Viv.
Thank you,
Um,
Joey.
yeah, so I've introduced you, but how do you introduce yourself?
I know the funny thing, the first thing that came to my mind as you were reading the bio is, I like how specific I was with before the pandemic hit. Because because that transition from travel blogger to like the content marketing space was actually, it happened really before the pandemic. Everything was in the works around January, and the pandemic really hit in March. And so it's funny that I was so specific with that in my bio, because I find that, a lot of people pivoted into something different, especially from the travel space when things, were going haywire and we were told to stay home. But yeah, content, I realize, has been something, a part of me, a gift that was always there. And so whether it was, I think the one thing that really helped me build trust with people is whether it was travel. I still have a lot of people that are travel bloggers that still follow me till today, right? Some left, some were like, we want the travel tips. And I'm like, sorry, y'all, I got to grow. But I think, like I said, one of the big things was people seeing the consistency in what I did and how I did it, right? And so yeah, I mean, you introduced me. I don't think I have anything else to really add to that introduction.
So and I think I met you when you had already pivoted. So I would have
I think
never
so.
known.
Yeah.
And I think it really clicked for me later that, oh, the VO guide. So she used to do this before. So I it now hit me later that, oh, the reason why you call yourself at the VO guide is because of how you started. So I didn't really interact with that part of you, and I don't know if maybe I would have followed you then when you were
Mm-hmm.
doing that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I because I do love to travel, but I don't know if that's what I
Yeah.
was doing with my page. So, but it was very interesting.
I think the other thing also was a lot of people ask me about where the name came from, and to be honest, like when I was coming up with the name, I was just like, I didn't want to use impact. Like there were a lot of like words that I didn't want to use. And I was like, okay, what describes what I want to do? Right. And I'm like, but can always like not even all that what I want to do, but like also who am I? Like who am I as a person naturally? And what I found when I looked through a bunch of words is like I've always been a guide, right? I'm not guide per se like a tour guide, which I mean that was a play on those words for travel, but it was always like I've always been the person that helped people understand basically like okay how to navigate certain spaces, which still speaks true to today. So God works in his own ways, but when the name came to me I was like I like it. And so that was one of the things that I didn't even have to worry about when I did pivot into the content space because I was still in the capacity of somebody who was like a guide for other people who were exploring new spaces and new things. So, yeah.
How did people feel about you pivoting? You were this guide. So basically, you were a guide in one respect, and then you shifted to being a guide in another respect. So how did people take it?
I don't funny enough, I don't even think I was I don't even think I was really looking at whether people liked it or not because I think for me there was a very huge it was
Mm,
around because I started my brand in 2019, right? I had the name, but like
mhm,
February, had the page saved, but I didn't start posting until May 2019, and then came out as a travel blogger. Where I think the first trip that my husband and I, obviously boyfriend
mhm,
then, was Japan, and so started using that. But I think some people, I mean, I
mhm,
didn't have a huge unfollowing, let's say that, right? But I think some people were very like, okay, what,
mm,
like, what's up? But I think they were also very welcoming because my content during my travel blogging days weren't your like they weren't your typical travel blogging tips and tricks, right? They were stories of my experiences. And then you had some tips and guides here and there. But there was always a story, sharing an experience, whether it was getting dressed in Kyoto, right, in their traditional garb, right? Or whether it was visiting, the castle in Osaka, like that kind of thing. Like it was always about the experience than like, here's a tip on how you save money to go on a trip, right? Those things were still there, but the majority of my content was very experience and
oh,
storytelling based. So when I started coming out, I continued with the storytelling, right? The like why I felt like I was pivoting, what I wanted to do in the space. But I will also say there was also more technical, tactical strategies behind because I did do market research. But my market research wasn't your typical market research where I had an idea of what I wanted to do. It literally was me jumping on social media one day and saying, hey guys, what do you need help with? Jump on a call with me. I got 30 minutes. Let's do this. Um, and between March and May, yeah, of 2020, I jumped on about 55 calls. Like, yeah, 55 calls. Started with one, posted the results of that one, started with another, right? Just continue doing that. And every single person, except for like two out of the 55, were like, oh, your content is so good. How do I know if I'm, sharing value? How do I talk about this? I want to talk about this in this space, but I'm in like it was just all surrounded around content, giving value to their ideal clients, understanding their ideal clients. And it dawned on me that outside of people seeing me as the travel blogger, they actually saw me as somebody who could coach them in content, right? And so that for me was then the I guess the fuel to the fire I was already feeling in me to be like, actually, let's just do this. Like let's step into this lane because clearly 52 people or 53 people already telling me that
Yeah.
this is what they're coming to me for. And so not only was that a bunch
Wow.
of research that I got to hear what people were saying and what they were struggling with, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, the am I giving value? I don't know if I'm being clear. Like all the things that people, struggle with content, I got to hear it firsthand from a group of 52 people. And it's funny because I also would give them tips that would help them, and then they will go tell other people. I remember being on a call one day, and somebody who had been on a discovery call with me was like, "Yeah, guys, y'all should go book a call with Viv before she cancels her, like she closes her calendar because I really got clarity." And yes, that was literally how it was. And
Wow.
then literally
Wow.
after that, it was even the
Wow.
coach was like, oh, let me jump on a call with you. And even she got her own stuff. Like I was like, hey, this is what you should probably try to do in this way. But that was really the story. Like I think people already saw it in me before I saw it in myself. And so it took stepping out to ask those questions and to, get on those calls to say, oh, people already see this. I might as well own this.
Mm, yeah. Wow. That's really cool how people can validate your direction and where you're going and even fuel you
Mm.
to be able to press the gas on it, right?
Yeah.
So and that's really cool. And they're right because I saw the same thing when I stumbled upon your content. I think you're really good.
Thank you.
So but let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Um who how would you how would you describe yourself to someone who is really trying to understand who you are, or what kind of story would you tell them that would summarize who you are?
Huh. Um, I would honestly probably just be like, Viv is I would even say like Viv is a dreamer who stepped into a space with no certificate,
Mm,
no experience, and just a desire to help people do stuff differently. And I know that sounds very general, but one of the big things that still grinds my gears, right? And did before was everybody sounded the same. And everybody still, in a way, sometimes sounds the same now. But it was just this deep desire to get people, especially in the content space, to realize that it's not all about you, right? Yes, it's about you because you're an expert, but it's about how do you connect what you have and how you want to help people and the problem that you're solving to what people need. Because you can spend all your days on social media, talking about all that you do, but if there is no connection point and people can't relate to you, then everything falls to the ground. And so I guess I would just describe what I do or who I am as somebody who just had this desire to help people connect with each other, right? To help people understand what they had was unique. I think that's one of the big things too. Understand that what you have is unique. Some people know that, some people don't. That you have a unique story, you have a unique approach, you have a unique outlook, right? Whether you want to use it to do to build a startup or to go into product based, whatever that you're trying to build, you have a unique outlook and you have a unique path, and you have to understand that to you as a person, there is a unique person that will connect to that. But if you keep going down this route of let me look at what all these big names are doing, and try to validate yourself by sharing all your educational expertise without trying to tie in the needs and the desires of your people, then no one is going to connect with you. So, yeah, Vivi's just a girl who's just trying to have you do things differently. Find yourself, find your unique voice, and express it to the people that need to hear it.
Wow, it's very interesting, right? Because when you said people sound the same, you're right. A lot of people, like, we're living in an internet age, so there's a lot of facts out there and
Yes,
principles out there, and people just take them and they just
yes,
present them.
yes.
So, what they fail to understand is, facts are just facts outside of the fact that you've built an identity that is unique to people.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, my former business coach, I had heard the word discipline all my
Mm-hmm.
life, but it had to come from my former business coach for me to actually
Yeah.
understand what
Mm-hmm.
discipline is. So, what it made me realize, it's not the things that are being said, it's the
Mm-hmm.
person that's saying it that gives
Yes.
them the weight to pay attention. So, right. So, they told me about discipline all my life, but it took to have someone that I really admire, respect, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to model after to be like, hey, you need discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it feels such like a
Yes,
new word, right? So, so content is not really about, people try to think, okay, so let me just bring this education that I already know.
it's not.
That's not enough. Like, you need to also create the person that
Mm-hmm.
people will want to
Yeah.
listen
And
to,
and the
right?
perspective too. So like there might have been something that your business coach said about discipline that resonated with you, right? Or the way he even described it to you that resonated with you. And you're right. Facts are just facts until you actually live the fact out. So when you lived out the fact or the concept of discipline, it became like, where was this all my life? Like I've been hearing about this all my life. How am I just like getting into same thing even with me? Like when I would say things like consistency and I would always hear it. And for me, I had to then come to an understanding of what consistency meant for me, right? And I think that's one of the big things is and people need to understand this with concepts, right? Especially even with content as you're putting it out, there's so many concepts. These concepts are not going away. They're foundational concepts in whatever it is that you're going to teach in branding, in marketing, in business strategy, product sourcing, whatever it is that you're going to build. But what does that look like for other people? And I think the issue that we find in this space is we have some unique siloed people or brands that have seen success templatizing things. I don't even know if that's a word, but we see that a lot. So people are like, oh, I'm gonna just templatize my own thing, or I'm gonna find success stepping into this space and just buying from this person, or instead of really thinking and telling people and asking yourself, does this fit? Like, do I relate to this? And I always tell people all the time, whether I'm teaching them, whether I'm training them, whether I'm even doing content for them, I'm training you to think, right? I'm not training you to take this template and run with it and do your own thing. No, like I'm training you to think, take the parts that make sense to you and build your own thing. Because my strategy is not sustainable to you, but I can teach you the core of what you need to know. Then you shape shift and craft it to your own way. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And so that's even the beauty of content is a lot of people, it's like we all sound the same. Not me though, because that's one thing I'm always trying to, I was like, I'm not gonna sound like you, but that's the thing is that when people see someone that's successful, they try to jump on that person's strategy or like, oh, they're saying it this way, let me do it that way. But the truth is, your ideal person, whoever it is that you're trying to reach, will relate to something, right? That you have put together that is beyond the concept of, yeah, I want to build community. What does that mean for your person? Yeah, I want to educate them about breast cancer or about branding. What does that mean? And so I tell people all the time, we need to learn how to think about how these strategies can work well for our businesses because everybody on the internet, even myself, wants to claim that their strategy is the best. But I tell people all the time, you might come to me and see the way I'm showing up. I don't teach people anything that I don't do, right? And even what I do, I would still have you ask yourself, does this fit how you should be showing up? Does this fit how you should be creating content? Because it could not even, relate to anything that your ideal client wants. And so there's layers to it, but yeah, it's like we all sound the same. And the goal, like my goal, to be honest, like if there's a goal that Vivian has had in this content space, is everybody needs to have their own unique voice, like because there's specific people that are attracted to your unique voice. But the more you keep sounding like everybody else, you're going to get them sometimes, but to be able to get them consistently at a the quality of clients that you know are for you, then you really need to find what that unique voice is, and step into your lane and keep pushing in that way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You
Sorry.
just opened like a can
I
of
love
worms
talking about
in
this
my
because I'm
head.
like, I could talk about this for days, because that's the thing. I went through that, sounding like somebody else,
Yeah.
looking like somebody else, where when
Hmm.
people were trying to hire me,
Hmm.
they thought I was going to be like this person, or they would put me on a pedestal with that person and try to balance me out and say, oh, should I go for this person? And I'm like, I'm not even like them. I'm not them at all. But because a lot of what I was doing was emulating them and their success, Vivian didn't have a voice, especially when I first came into the content space. But when people were like, "Yeah, Viv, we know you love content, but like you're really a storyteller," and so when I honed in on that storytelling piece, that was when I started finding my own voice. And so I tell people, yeah, I do messaging, I can do content strategy and content creation. I got you on that. But my basis, what makes me unique, is I take it from a storytelling lens, and you might not find that out there. Some people might teach you about omni-channel marketing. Some people might teach you about rebranding. But when you come to Viv, everything is going to be based on storytelling from your ideal client's lens. And then we weave that into your messaging, your content, and your strategy. And so that's basically my story in a way. When I was pivoting into the spaces, I didn't have a unique voice. But now that I do, people recognize me. People are like, okay, she's saying something a little different than what I've heard, or she's saying the same thing but from a different perspective, and I respect that. So
Oh my gosh. You said something about um you teach people how
mhm,
to think, and that has really
yeah,
blown my mind because it's true, right? Because outside of that, there are a lot of people who are probably looking at content as a set of deliverables that they need to churn out
yes,
through their online
yes,
presence, um, just to be able
yes,
to stay relevant, right? But what you're saying is you're not really very interested in churning out those deliverables. You want to train them how to know how effective they
yes,
can be in whatever direction that they choose to go with churning
right
out
there,
the delivery.
right
And
there,
I think that's really rare. Yeah, and it's actually what
yeah,
people need, right? So you don't want them to feel like they need your brain. You need to train them to have a
yeah,
brain that can be able
right there,
to stay
yeah,
consistent even long after you're
absolutely,
gone, right? So they can have content that is
yeah,
consistent with who they are and with
yeah,
their voice for the
yeah.
rest of their lives if they
If they choose
choose
to
to
do
do
that.
that.
I tell people all the time, whether I'm training, I'm just like, it's not about I mean, you literally said everything. I always used to tell people, like, I don't want you to need me after I coach you, I train you, or after you work with me. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Even my like monthly retainer clients, like I have clients that I manage their content every month. And I always tell people all the time, and it's funny because I have a post coming out that says that, like, I don't expect my clients to stay with me forever, because the way I train even my monthly content clients is I train them, right, to be able to have the tools, understand how I'm thinking about content and how they should think about it as well, so that after me, they will be able to probably train an in-house social media manager forever. I see my agency, I literally see the VO guide as your launch pad. You perfect your voice, you perfect your messaging, you understand what content fits your style, your vision, your voice, and your values and where you're going. And then after a few months, clients usually stay with me for 3 to 6 months. Then you can go hire an in-house agency, right? I am not a social media manager that will stay with you forever, right? I'm a content management agency that helps you get the pieces together of your content, gives you the tools, then you go hand it to a social media manager to go do what they need to do. And so it's really training people to think about it from that perspective, because it's almost like I don't want to be I don't want myself to be a crutch to them, where they feel like they always have to hang on to, okay, what does Viv say about next month? What if it, no, no, no. I want you to start thinking creatively. Like my greatest moments in VIP days, in training sessions, whether I'm teaching a live course or I'm doing a strategy session, is when I'm walking my clients through, like, what kind of content they should create. And they're like, oh, can I do this? Actually, can we do this in place of this? Can we switch, this out that you suggested? And I'm like, yes, 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 you can. Like, I'm like very excited because I'm like, yes, like, please switch out what I'm telling you to do for something else. Please take what I'm telling you, as long as you understand the foundational elements of what you need as a brand. Yes, absolutely. Please do what you need to do in order to make this you. Every client is different, but I'm gonna stop talking so that you can so that you can continue.
Wow. Let's
Okay.
shift to storytelling for a second. So, um, what is storytelling and why is it relevant to founders and
I feel like
leaders?
storytelling as a word is even like a loaded question, but a loaded word itself. But I look at storytelling, and even in relation to like founders and leaders, as the connection point, right? Between, your vision, your voice, your values, and your ideal client's vision, voice, value. So it's like storytelling is that piece that connects where you're going and where you want other people to go, and the experience that you've had to where your ideal client or the community, the audience, who, whatever you want to call them, the people that you're trying to serve, where they want to go, right? Or where they've been, or where they are right now, and what they value and what their concerns are that they're trying to voice. And so I really see storytelling as that piece, that bridge, kind of call it like a bridge that allows your ideal client to walk on that journey that you're taking them through, whether it is that you're a coach or a consultant or a brand, a full startup. But that's my definition of storytelling. And I can't stress the importance of storytelling, for leaders, for startups. Doesn't matter where you are in what space. If you're building something that there's a person on the other end that's going to purchase it, you're solving a problem for someone, that story is literally your connection point. It's will your start, right? To understand who you're even trying to reach. And it's like a continuous journey that you're taking them on. And so it is at least the most important thing you need to pull out, of your idea. Because one of the questions I always ask clients, okay, how did this idea come up? Like, where did it come from? Like, I want to know where, like, how, what was that moment that you were like, yo, I'm gonna build this, you know, I'm gonna do this. And so that for me is at least a definition of storytelling, and obviously the importance of it, um, for founders and for leaders.
What I wanted to ask you is because within storytelling, we have people who also want to tell
Hmm.
ideal stories rather than true stories. I don't know if
Hmm.
this is something that, because people feel like, my story is not interesting enough. It's not, so I need almost to like tailor it, make it fancier so that when I present it to the world, that they can have the right perception. And I am very, very
I'm
against that.
against that too.
But I want to hear from you. Like, what's your perspective on?
I get it. So don't get me wrong. I get it, and that's one of the most common, sentiments from people when they hear the concept of storytelling, and things like that. But I'm very against trying to pretty up the story. Why? Because your ideal client is currently going through the same thing. So if you pretty it up, you're taking out bits and pieces that they would even connect to. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And so it's like, why pretty up something that ends up being very like, it would not, there's no connection point. Your ideal client, it's like, what's an example? Like maybe let's even use the most common type of stories that we hear all the time, right? Someone getting to rock bottom, trying to get out of rock bottom, maybe trying to build their business from having nothing, right? If you pretty it up and be like, well, I hit rock bottom, but like my dad gave me some money, or I found some, it sounds very unrealistic, because most people, when they hit rock bottom, they're like, what do I do? How do I get myself out of it? And so that's one of the things that I tell people all the time, is that like, you have to, it's not everything people need to know. Let's also clarify that, right? There's some details that are unnecessary in your story. But when you are tailoring your story to connect with your ideal clients, you can't take out the pieces that relates to that journey. You know, and so that's one thing I talk about all the time. Like, trying to fix it or doubting that your story is actually impactful is detrimental, because you're no one is gonna connect to you. Instead, you really look like, I had somebody in my DMs one day be ask me, not ask me, but tell me like, oh, you don't seem like your success or what you have built doesn't seem out of reach, you know, which I thought was a very interesting perspective, because she was like, when I see other people, it seems like it's this magical boom, they've made it. But she was like, every day you show up, and even when you create content, when you go through like your case studies, you're walking through like your failures, what you did wrong, your process. Like, you're showing us how to think, but you're bringing us into the thinking so we can think for ourselves. And I'm like, I'm glad, but that's the thing, right? Is you not only want to seem relatable, but for people to connect with you, but you also want to seem accessible and approachable with your brand, right? You want people to be like, hey, actually, you know what? I'm gonna go to Joey, right? To go hire him for X, Y, and Z, because I actually know he's been through what I'm currently going through. Or, he's struggled with this thing that I'm currently struggling with. And so trying to craft an ideal story, because you don't want to, there's certain parts of part, you're probably, I will say on the other end though, before I do say that, is if there are elements of your story you haven't necessarily healed from or addressed, then maybe you shouldn't be sharing it. But obviously, if you've gotten to a point where you want to start a business, based on this thing that you have been struggling with, or based on this solution or this problem that you solve, then I'm pretty sure you've processed it enough to see the beauty, right? The results out of it that you then want to market to other people. But yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So if
Hmm.
let's say I'm hearing this for the first time, maybe I'm watching this video, I'm listening to Viv talk about storytelling, and I want to leverage it for myself and for my brand. What do I do?
I always tell people to start with where the idea came from. Why this idea? I don't think a lot of people ask themselves that question. I think people shy away from the question why they started something. And I also tell people, if why you started it was because of money, why did you pick this particular topic? Or why did you pick this particular product? Always probing and asking yourself why, that is always the best place to start, because when you are presenting your product or your service to people, you're not just saying, hey, this is a perfect product, go buy it, it's amazing for you. No, you're saying, hey, I actually created this product because of X, Y, and Z. So I'll give an example of somebody that I had to probe a little bit with. So she's a product based brand, and she sells sunglasses and lip gloss, which is, when you think about it, it's like, okay, that's an interesting combination. So I asked her, why did you start your business? She was like, you know what? I needed to make a little, some extra money. And I was like, let me just find something that I can sell. I was like, okay, cool. Why sunglasses and lip gloss? She was like, because to be honest, those are the two things that I need if I'm trying to walk out and get out of the house and be done, and just like sunglasses on, put some lip gloss. Nobody knows that I only got 2 hours of sleep. Nobody knows that I only got 3 hours of sleep, right? Nobody knows that I probably didn't sleep last night. I was like, boom, that is your connection point. So I always tell people, it's not a coincidence why you picked certain things or clothes or a topic that you want to teach on. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So always probing. So if it's like your first time, you're like, I really want to leverage storytelling. Why did you start your business? Why this idea? And if your why is, yo, I just needed money, then the next question is, well, why this particular thing? And get honest with yourself. And if you're just like, you know what? I saw it on the internet and it seemed like a likely thing. I actually have no relation to this project, then maybe we just need to dig a little deeper to find that connection point. Or that might even be the issue why you're probably struggling with creating content that is relatable to your ideal clients. Or maybe you've seen success selling something that is just like random because you probably were the one out of, hundreds of thousands that tried this and you hit the jackpot and people are buying your product. Then you have to ask yourself, okay, cool. Is this something I want to be doing long term? Or is there something else that I would want to even move the money towards to actually build that I know will relate to other people? Because there's some people that just find products and they're like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna just do this. But 9 times out of 10, the people I see starting things, like my husband owns a custom suit business, and people are always like, they don't even need to ask why custom suits, because when they see him dressed, they're like, all right, cool, I get it. Like, I'm not even gonna ask because every day you look good. They're like every day you're dressed up. And that's the thing, right? He wanted, like, he loves design, he loves suits, he loves to get dressed. So he was like, actually, custom suits, I see the big names, why not? Right? Let me introduce people to different styles, different types, and business is going well. And so start with why is the point I'm trying to make. And go deeper with the why.
First of all, shout out to Vivian's husband Dan. Oh my gosh. If you guys have ever seen a dapper man,
Funny, his slogan is "Be dapper." So
oh
it's
my
interesting that you use
gosh.
the word dapper.
Yeah.
But
All right. So let's say someone is like, okay, all this is good, but I still feel like I need help. I need someone to hold my hand, introduce me to this world. How
yeah,
do I
yeah.
reach you, and what does that look like usually?
Yeah, I mean, I have different, I guess, like different services or different levels of ways that people can work with me, and obviously branding myself as a consultant in an agency. But there's always a DIY, like do it yourself, where I'm training you how to think about content. Like we go through messaging strategy and content, and then you basically, take the strategies, take everything, and build your own with together. And that's I call it the back to the basics content course, because we're really going back to the basics. Like we really need to go to the root of everything and build up from there. There is a done with you version, which is a VIP day. So I call it like my audit and content strategy VIP days. And what we do is we work together. Like I'm obviously creating, myself and my team, we're creating the content for you, but you are then going to go execute. But in that way, it's a more one-on-one, this we're walking through stuff, I'm doing the research, I'm going down to go do all the things that need to be done, versus the course, you know what research questions you need to go ask, you know how to go to do that research, and you're going to go do that audit and research yourself. And obviously way higher tier is I manage people's content. So people come to me and they're like, hey, I'm not getting this messaging thing right, I'm doing all the different strategies, and I really need somebody, right, with with your genius, who's able to set me on the right path and help me manage the content, because I need to just take care of my clients. And so I do that as well. So there's different levels. Obviously, my Instagram is probably the best place while I put my website together, because that's still up and coming this year. But yeah, we can, there's levels of services, and it's just a matter of asking yourself, do I just want to learn how to do this, right? And then implement and figure it out myself? Do I want to do it with her where she's doing parts of it and I'm going to execute? Or do I just want to, hand it off and just be like, Viv, I don't even want to touch it. I'll think. You're still gonna think. That's what I tell clients all the time. We don't outsource your brain. We're not outsourcing your thinking. We're just outsourcing the actual implementation on that side. Yeah. So those are three ways. And even in a DIY version, I have like a separate content audit. So if you've been doing it, you're like, I think I have a pretty good handle on this, but I want to make sure, then I can always do a thorough audit of your like social media channels, your website and things like that, to really make sure that you are, saying, and actually making those connection points based on who you say, like who you serve and where you're trying to go. So those are the different kind of like levels of it, and it's up to the person to say, hey, I fit
Wow.
within these parts. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. So tell them about your social media
Thank
handles
you.
then, if you're sending them to your Instagram.
Oh Lord. So at the VO guy. Wait, what else am I telling them? Well, at the VO Guide, and every Wednesdays I do something called Case Study Wednesdays, and I basically take very popular topics. So this past week we talked about valuable content and what it actually means, not what we just randomly think it means. So I take very popular topics in the content storytelling messaging space, and I break it down using specific examples, specific client examples that I've worked with. And then every Thursdays, I do like a mini chat session, like a mini training, just again, walking people through certain like mini tips, and I kind of expand on it. It's more of a way for you to think about things differently than what other people, than what you're being taught on the internet space. So if you are not even ready for to make an investment, if you're like, I wanna see what she's talking about a little bit more, then you can come on over Wednesdays or Thursdays. Those are my kind of main days where you see me showing up. Other than that, my content goes out, every other day of the weekday. But yes, the link in my bio has all the links to either your content audits or just to generally apply to work with me. And then we can figure out where you fit within the different
Wow.
levels. Yeah.
Thank you so much for just having this conversation
Thank you
with
for
me.
having
If
me.
I feel like we could
Yes.
talk all day. There were some things I wanted to talk to you about, but we're running out of
Yes.
time. So
Oh no. We need a part two. We need a part
yeah,
two
we
of
need to
this.
do a part two. But thank you so much for just sharing your story and the value that you put into
Thank
the
you.
world with your content and even
Yes.
everything that you
Thank you.
share. Just want you to know that you're appreciated, and I hope the people that watch this are able to see that and just come to you and get the help that they need. So you guys go follow
Thank
Viv
you.
at the VO Guide and learn from her. And if you need help, just reach out to her and she'll help you. All right. Thanks, Viv, for coming
Yes.
through. I will see you if we decide to
Thank
do a part
you.
two.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes, yes.
All
Thank you
right.
so much, Joey. I really appreciate it.